Phillip Kennedy Johnson, Becky Cloonan, Michael W. Conrad, and Jeremy Adams conclude their cosmic stories, for now at least, as Superman continues his never-ending battle on Warworld. The Black Racer sets her sights on the rich. Mr. Miracle fights for his life to warn Earth of Warworld, and Midnighter battles his former flame Apollo in a bid to stop a nuclear power from rising. Phillip Kennedy Johnson once again treats us to a perfect Superman story, and a story that continues to show us what Superman means to him as a writer, and in turn what it means to people like the Sadie character he introduced last issue. I thoroughly enjoyed the story Johnson put forth through one of Clark's articles, and how Clark followed in this man's footsteps to be a good man, and help where he can and who he can. It was great seeing an emphasis put on Clark and his writing being used as his strongest power, and the part of him that saved someone who really needed it. It's one of his strongest powers, and it's a power everyone seems to forget he has. I can't wait for Phillip to continue his story in the House of El book, as well as the two ongoings in Infinite Frontier in March, since this issue sealed the deal for me that he completely gets Superman, and I think we're in for a really great set of stories. Brandon Easton finished up his Mr. Miracle story in a fantastically creative way, slipping Shiloh into an impossible to escape situation. I thoroughly enjoyed having it slowly revealed that Shiloh this whole time has been stuck in a time loop with himself, and it was great watching him deduce that that is what is happening to him. Really wonderfully showcasing Shiloh is no slouch when it comes to space-time hijinks and understanding them. I'm really looking forward to seeing if this is what continues in his mini-series that he's getting very soon, since it's like the ultimate test for Mr. Miracle to literally escape from time, and it sounds like a damn cool premise. Becky Cloonan and Michael Conrad also played around with the space-time continuum a little bit, delivering a fantastic finale for now on Midnighter's story that features some really great and bloody action, and like the Mr. Miracle story, some really great time travel shenanigans that end up with Midnighter being stuck in the future going forward. I really enjoyed the couple's take on Midnighter through this story, and forcing him to rely on his own mind rather than his supercomputers was a lot of fun to watch unfold. Jeremy Adams, meanwhile, kind of disappointed me with the Black Racer storyline and the ending of that storyline for now, mainly because it was so damn short and nothing really progressed in the plot that we hadn't seen in that first issue. It almost feels like I've missed part of the story, since Tanda just now fully is the Black Racer and has these great new powers that aren't really explained, which isn't really a problem, but it is more so that they don't even really get a mention in the slightest, which I found strange, being that I think she would want to say something about her armor evolving as she takes down guards, which is really cool to see. Her story obviously isn't ending here, but it felt like a letdown that there wasn't sort of a proper ending. We just end with her still continuing through the rings, whereas I thought it would have ended with her confronting who she wants to get revenge on, and then we picking up that story in Infinite Frontier. Mikael Janin returns with his beautifully rendered artwork for the main Superman story, with this issue fully delivering on the Gladiator Superman teased on the covers. I enjoyed all his awesome alien gladiator designs this issue, as well as Mongol's design as well, which was simple yet also intimidating. Valentin Delandro's Mr. Miracle artwork again was wonderfully coloured and bright, and with some really great looking paneling that casts Shiloh in these great shadows that allow for more detail to appear on his rather form-fitting costume. I always liked that there was a panel that tried to change up how they showed him in light and in darkness, and it worked really well. Michael Avon Deming took over the art duties on the Midnighter story from Gleb Malinikoff, and I think he did a fantastic job capturing the violent, bloody and savage feel of the story that Gleb was able to capture last issue. It was great that we got more cyborg robot characters as well, since you can always go a little more hardcore with them in the violence department, and here was no different, with Midnighter ripping Trojan's face off and his head off and just blowing him apart. Sia Oum's Black Racer art was on point, despite what I thought of the overall actual story. I really enjoyed her designs for the newer Black Racer costumes seen throughout the story, again paying homage to the original Black Racer while also making it look like a suit of armor a knight would wear. The overall robot and alien designs were also a lot of fun this issue as well, especially the giant guard robot Racer had to battle, since it looked like a night watchman you'd find in like a museum or factory, and I thought that was a nice little design choice. Future State Superman Worlds of War issue 2 was a fantastic conclusion to the Superman stories for now, perfectly encapsulating what Superman means to me and many other people, including the writers here. The backup stories were really quite fun and rounded up their arcs in great creative ways, despite really only one of the stories being a little too short and empty of any real plot progression. I'm going to give this issue a 9 out of 10. A 9 out of Future State Superman Worlds of War issue 2 finds Sadie leaving Smallville, but one of the guys from the share group catches up to her, learning that there is something else that she wants to check before she leaves the town. The boy mentions how she said that Clark Kent saved her, so Sadie shows him the article Clark wrote, saying that he saved her not because that he was fast or hits hard, but because he wrote something she really needed to help find her purpose. She says that if people back in the group want to understand who Superman is and why he's coming back, they need to read that article. The boy reads the article, which details Clark's recount of a man who died in Metropolis, a man who had no home or family or job, and a man who many people would not envy. Clark, however, knew him and knew his life, and anyone who knew it would be proud of it, and it's a life he wants to share. Clark talks about how in 1942, an African-American piano player named Dan Waters walked to one of his auditions, buying a paper on the way that talked about a faraway land where a new world order is set out to enslave and exterminate its enemies. Edgar knew the world was at war, but a foot deformity prevented him from being drafted, but after reading about the horrors being committed, something changed in him and his foot became the first of many obstacles he would overcome. So in the coming months, the man who was raised as an artist learned the ways of war. Superman meanwhile continues his battle with the gladiators on Warworld to save the people enslaved there. Clark's article continues, saying that Edgar's greatest challenge came on the beaches of Normandy, where he was hideously wounded as soon as he set foot on the beach. A wound that should have killed him, but he spent the next 30 hours crawling from wounded to wounded, helping his brothers in arms stay alive, all while trying to stay conscious himself. Superman is stabbed by one of the gladiators, but still the hero gets back up to defend his friends. Clark's article details how Edgar lived through the battle and through the war, and was called to do other things that haunted him, like killing soldiers to save innocents. Sadie meanwhile leads the boy to the Kent farm, but the boy reminds her that it's now at the museum in town. Sadie knows that that's a fake one built for tourists, and the real one is up the roads away. At least it was before the cyborg thing trashed it. Superman continues to battle the gladiators as Clark's article talks about Edgar helping to bring democracy to Germany after the war, before returning to Metropolis to find veterans had become champions of civil rights. He soon led a march on City Hall, where he suffered a fractured skull thanks to counter-protesters, but Waters fought back and fought back hard, and after being beaten and hospitalized, he still continued to fight, even as his son and wife died. He continued to organize anti-war protests and even organized a scholarship in his son's name, which he continued to raise money for many years. Superman fights back against the gladiators, kicking them down but not killing them. Soon in Metropolis, Edgar became known around the hospitals, being nicknamed Crutch thanks to the limp he had and becoming the local hospital staff sergeant. He also began running for public office, but he never won, but he became known around the city as someone who would not let their voice go unheard, and never let a community in Metropolis be marginalized, and even when he slept in alleys and shelters, he wrote letters and borrowed phones to ensure the continuation of the scholarship that was set up in his son's name. Clark knows that if someone saw Edgar at his lowest, they would think he was a failure, but he was a fighter who fought for those who couldn't, a citizen whose voice was given to the voiceless, and a man whose resolve never faltered, even as he lost everything around him. Superman continues his battle, smashing the gladiators' chains off, but Mongol kills the gladiators, calling them and Superman pathetic since he didn't draw a single drop of blood from the fighters, so why even bother with a sword? Clark says the fighters weren't the target, as Mongol realizes that their restraints were cut off. Mongol reaches for a sword as Sadie arrives at the site of the original Kent farm, saying that this is where he became Superman, and had Clark's powers never come, he would still have been the man he was. He just would have helped people in different ways. She tells her new friend that they shouldn't have needed him to tell them that he was Superman, and if they go back through all of his articles for the Daily Planet, he was telling them the whole time. Soon Sadie's friend stands lands on something, realizing that it's a cellar door. The duo unearth the door, lifting it open as on Warworld, Mongol asks when Superman will tire of the villain killing him and then resurrecting him, asking how many slaves he has failed to save. The villain tells Clark that one day he will remember nothing about his life but the arena, not his wife, not his son, or his own name, and he'll only be a soldier of Warworld, and on that day, he'll be sent to Earth to kill everyone he ever loved, since they will have forgotten him like he has forgotten them. Superman says that he won't leave until every chain on Warworld is broken, and when every slave is free, and every life that Mongol has taken is paid for, and only then will he go home. Mongol doesn't say anything, taking his leave as Clark's article reminds us to remember Edgar Waters and remember him not in name, but by the life he lived. Sadie and her friend meanwhile find Clark's rocket in the cellar, making Sadie cry as she touches it. Clark reminds everyone that they must strive to live like Edgar did, by protecting those in need, demanding the truth of the leaders, and by standing taller when they are knocked down. Superman again takes to the arena to free the slaves as the article concludes, reminding the reader that if they stop fighting because the accolades never come, because their opponents or even allies belittle them, or because the fight seems greater than what they can give, then the accolades were never theirs. The people of Warworld soon begin cheering for Superman, raising their destroyed chains as the hero continues his never-ending battle. Mr. Miracle, meanwhile, faces down the intergalactic fleet he has found outside Warworld. He soon gets to work reconnecting the power circuit junction on the outside of Warworld to the comms array, returning inside to ask MB when the reinforcements will arrive. MB finds the Kryptonian matrix is still bleeding into the CPU as Shiloh is attacked by the guard reinforcements. Mr. Miracle unleashes some of the failed action figures his manager talked him into making, having retrofitted them into flashbang grenades. The bright light blinds the guards, allowing Shiloh to have MB find a steam pipe within the airlock, which he pops open, flooding the room with steam. The guards spread out to find Shiloh and corner him, but he uses illusions to lure them into the airlock, blasting them out into space. MB is impressed with Shiloh's ingenuity and survivability, but a planet-wide alert was sent out and more squads are heading their way, and they have 5 minutes. Shiloh activates the comms relay, trying to download the telemetry data to get the signal to reach Earth. MB only gets partial Earth coordinates, so Shiloh quickly sends the message. However, it is lost in space as MB reboots the Sol 3 signal coordinates yet again. MB continues to try and send out a message until there is a little over 2 minutes until the guards arrive. Shiloh hears that MB says that there was a temporal maladjustment, and so Shiloh realizes that their calculations aren't adding in 3 dimensions plus 1, which he knows is time. He begins working on how to get around the time dilation issue as well as compensating for the universe actually moving around them. He tells MB to compensate for the elastic nature of the universe, and with 30 seconds left, MB calculates coordinates for another message, but it's too late as the guards arrive, forcing Mr. Miracle to leave the comms array without ever knowing if the signal made it to Earth, but the message was received. On Earth, Superman's invasion alert is triggered. John is told by Kellex that the computer intercepted source energy in deep space. John wonders if its coordinates are linked to Apocalypse or the New Gods, but Kellex doesn't know, but it's broadcasting in both English and Kryptonian. He asks the robot to backtrack the signal, learning that it comes from within Metropolis. John tells Kellex to activate some Sentinel droids and send them into the city to conduct an investigation, wanting them to find the threat to innocent life and contain it if the threat exceeds a factor of 0.5. In the Bottle City, Mr. Miracle is attacked by the droids as in the present, he realizes he's caught in a temporal causality loop, since when the message was sent to the Fortress of Solitude, Superman received the message and without proper context, thought the signal was from space and time, so he considered it a threat, and it's why the droids were sent in after Shiloh. Shiloh figures out that when MB expended all of its energy on the droids, they were implanted with the interface command he used, which allowed them to hack into MB and send them tumbling through space and time to Warworld, since the planet's coordinates were embedded in the distress signal he sent from Warworld. Shiloh knows that he's caught in a time loop now, having sent the distress signal himself to himself, and it's going to take a miracle to escape Warworld now. Midnighter meanwhile confronts Apollo, understanding completely why he's doing this, wanting to peel back the flesh to reveal the kind of person walking around in his husband's skin. Midnighter shoots Apollo in the face, surprising the villain since he wasn't aware that his supercomputer could function in there. But Midnighter says he doesn't need a computer to know Apollo isn't his Apollo. And besides, Apollo would never just send goons in to do his own dirty work. Apollo finds that rather quaint, revealing he's actually Andre Trojan, and Midnighter must feel exposed without his beta level supercomputer not working in the chrysalis. And once he had an implant like the heroes, he used it to see humanity's suffering and how to end it. Trojan says that he rather enjoyed dressing as Apollo and finds it a pity that he must give it up now. He talks about how the supercomputer Midnighter has is one note and he was never allowed to use it for anything other than giving himself an edge in violence. But his own implant allowed him to amass wealth and allowed him the technology to shed his organic husk. Midnighter remembers hearing about Trojan now, knowing that his brain told him to move on from selling robot limbs to armies to killing Superman. Something Trojan knows is just a start, and soon all organic life will die. Trojan proclaims that he's moved the needle and took evolution into his own hands, becoming the transcendent man, with not a drop of wet humanity in him now. Midnighter doesn't find his plan real enlightening like Trojan thinks, asking if he forgot a heart, but Trojan says his empathy extends beyond those who have wanted life to continue as it is, since the frailty of the human mind puts a premium on the body, but Trojan is way beyond that now, and his collider bends space and time, allowing him to master 4 dimensions, and in doing so, they made a cure, having made neurodium out of the Warworld slag, aging it by a millennia in mere minutes, making it more effective than Kryptonian and affecting more than just Superman since he's going to kill God with it. Midnighter says that that isn't happening, promising the villain that despite the computer being down in his head, he's been putting villains down for a long time, revealing his friend on the communicator watch. Trojan demands to know where he got that as Midnighter fires on him. Trojan is too fast, however, grabbing the hero who rips open Trojan's face with his mouth, wondering if the villain wants to have a little fun before he delivers his payload. The two men battle one another and Trojan wonders why the hero fights for Superman since the hero would put Midnighter behind bars, but Midnighter knows they make it work. Trojan smashes Midnighter away, telling him that he was hoping that he would understand his vision, but he would be exterminated with the rest of them now. Midnighter grabs his gun, blasting the villain and telling his contact the villain needs to die. The contact says that he can't be killed as Trojan comes back, grabbing Midnighter and breaking his hand, welcoming him to the big time. Midnighter, however, smashes open the collider, unleashing its power that rips off Trojan's skin as the villain says he's immune to its power, but the hero isn't. Midnighter is turned into a small child as Trojan comes for him. Midnighter, however, grows again, attacking the villain, but Trojan proves to be stronger, especially as Midnighter continues to age into an old man. Trojan slams him headfirst into the ground, saying the hero is finished, that is unless he still wants to transcend like Trojan has. Midnighter refuses to join his cult as Trojan hears a ticking, thinking the hero brought a bomb, but knows it won't stop him since he'll just upload into a new body. But Midnighter has no idea what the ticking device is, but he wants to find out. The device ticks down and goes off, and suddenly there is a bright light as a younger Midnighter comes through a portal, telling his older self he'll be put back into his timeline soon. The younger Midnighter tells Trojan that his supercomputer is functioning fully and he stabs the villain with a crowbar. Midnighter says Trojan using a nexus allowed him to grab his coordinates in the future and he came from a few years behind him, which is why the connection when they were talking with each other over the comm wasn't great. The old Midnighter joins in the beating of Trojan, saying that he should have known he was speaking to himself since it's the best instructions he's ever gotten on a mission. The old Midnighter slams Trojan into the ground, ripping his head clean off of his body. The two Midnighters shake hands, with the younger one telling his older self he's a bad man, but the older one tells him to stick with it and one day the younger one will be as bad as him. Trojan is happy for their reunion but knows that they will all die now thanks to a self-destruct device in his body. The young Midnighter grabs the neurodium, giving it and Trojan's head to the older one, telling him that they have a plan. Opening a door, the young one says that they are stuck in a bootstrap paradox and it's a cycle, so it's time for the old Midnighter to give the instructions to the next version of themselves and repeat the loop. He throws the old man through a door, saying that his trip into the Nexus will de-age him and he will need to be careful with the neurodium. With his older one sent on his way, Midnighter hopes that he'll find out how to get out of the time loop as he races through Warworld, fighting through Trojan's goons and towards an airlock. blowing it open and falling into one of his doors outside and into Warworld of the future, where he contacts his younger self, knowing their head is still spinning from dooring through time, but he's back on Earth in Midnighter's workshop. Midnighter wants his other self to fix the chip in their head and get out of the paradox, but he doesn't know how the man will do that as he hangs up the phone to deal with something else. In the present day Earth, Midnighter gets to work on Trojan's head, prying out his supercomputer to replace his, before intending to go and have a chat with the younger, still fleshy Trojan, knowing they have all the time in the world. Elsewhere on Warworld, the Black Racer battles through the guards of the Fourth Ring, told that if she stands down, they'll put in a good word for her on Ring 2. As Tanda takes down the soldiers, she absorbs them and their armor, which enhances her own weapons and armor. She remembers her life before as she took the Black Racer's name, since it was unstoppable and she wanted to be like him. But that was before someone killed her and before she thought herself invincible, but now she knows she is. The upgraded Black Racer cuts through the soldiers, knowing that she's 3 rings from the surface and 3 rings until she can finish this. She catches up to the leader of the level, learning to follow the pipes above them into the dining ring if she wants to escape. She leaves the man at the mercy of the angry slaves as she cuts into the pipes. The people want to come with her as well, but she tells them it's too dangerous, but the slaves don't care, so she leaves them to deal with their own funeral. At Ring 3, the rich are served dinner, complaining about the subpar service as Black Racer bursts through the ground with the slaves. A huge guard robot asks if the racer has a ticket, as on Ring 2 in the control room, the aliens continue to film Superman's battle in the arena. Suddenly, Black Racer is thrown through the control room by the guard. Racer knows that he shouldn't have done that as she smashes him with one of her shields. The Black Racer again evolves, growing into a giant mech-like suit of armor that blows through the last ring, freeing all of the slaves as she proclaims that she is the Black Racer, and like it or not, she comes for everyone.